The Scott Jennings Show is proudly sponsored by Lear Capital. Since 1997, Lear has helped Americans protect their retirement accounts and savings with physical gold and silver. With thousands of five-star reviews and $3 billion in transactions, Lear is who I trust to help me buy gold and silver. Visit LearScott.com.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Huge news day. We have Supreme Court arguments over birthright citizenship, and Trump was there. We have the latest on that. And tonight, the president speaks to the nation at 9 o'clock Eastern on Iran. We are a go for launching Artemis II to the moon this evening, and so much more. We cover it all today, plus track the breaking news as always. It is Tuesday, April the 1st, and this is Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here, broadcasting for Salem. And we are live today in New York City for one of the biggest news days in recent memory. 3 major events taking place today. We have the latest on them all, and we begin in Florida, where NASA plans to launch the Artemis II rocket tonight around 6:24 Eastern from the Kennedy Space Center. There is a 2-hour window for departure tonight, and this marks the first manned mission to the moon since 1972. The rocket will fly to the moon and around it, and then back to Earth. The astronauts won't step foot on the surface. But we will prove, once again, that man's ingenuity knows no bounds, and that the vast frontier of space remains a canvas on which mankind can imprint its indomitable spirit. As we deliver this broadcast live in the 1 o'clock Eastern hour, they are fueling the rocket in Florida. The first step, perhaps, in a series of great leaps for our space program over the next few years. In fact, let's hear from the NASA administrator, Jared Isaacman, about all of that in cut number 8.
What's at stake tomorrow and over the next 10 days for NASA, for the United States, and for all Earthlings? What's at stake here?
Look, I think that, we get this right. We launch Artemis II. We're going to go into, a parking orbit, an Earth orbit, then a high Earth orbit. So we're going to use those as opportunities to get really comfortable with the vehicle, and then we're going to send them. It's such a big deal, right? I mean, for the last half century, if we've got a problem, you're potentially hours away from reentry, whether, you're landing on a runway and shuttle or you're splashing down in the water. When we commit to TLI, when we send them out
Translunar injection, yeah. For those that don't know what TLI is.
When we commit, now you're days away from coming back, and we got to be really, really sure. But if, when we do that, and when we send them around the moon, and when we bring them back and they're under parachutes and splashing down, off the west coast of the United States, that's a milestone. Mm-hmm. That's a step in the direction to returning astronauts to the moon. We're going to launch Artemis III in 2027. That'll take us even closer. That's going to make us feel really good about the lander. And then in 2028, Artemis IV, it's going to go to the surface.
Here are the names of the astronauts going up into space tonight. Reed Wiseman is the commander. Victor Glover is a pilot. Christina Koch is a mission specialist. And Jeremy Hansen is also a mission specialist. And he posted this message on his social media early this morning in Cut 15.
It's 12:30 a.m. It's the day of launch, so it's time to go to bed. I get about 9 hours of rest before I need to get up and start getting ready to head to the launch pad. But Canada, I am thinking of you, and I am hoping that all of you see your greatness reflected in this journey around the moon. I'm just so proud of all of you.
Now, later in the show, we'll have the press secretary for NASA, Bethany Stevens, live from the Kennedy Space Center to give us the latest, as we are now just a few hours away from this momentous launch. Back here on Earth and in Washington, D.C., President Donald Trump did something this morning that no president has ever done. He attended oral arguments at the Supreme Court. The case today over his challenge to birthright citizenship, the idea that if you're born on American soil, the 14th Amendment guarantees you citizenship even if your parents are not citizens. Conservatives have long believed this to be a vast overreach for an amendment that was intended to ensure the offspring of slaves after the Civil War were indeed made citizens. One issue, of course, is the revelation that Chinese billionaires are exploiting and defrauding our visa system to engage in what's called birthright tourism, the practice of traveling here while pregnant to give birth, ensuring the child receives citizenship under the 14th Amendment. Now, it's pretty clear this fraudulent activity abuses our system and makes the United States vulnerable to a foreign adversary. Here's a back and forth from this morning's arguments between Solicitor General John Sauer and the Chief Justice John Roberts. It was lively this morning at the court. Cut 16.
We're in a new world now, as Justice Alito pointed out, to where 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen.
Well, it's a new world. It's the same Constitution.
It is, and as Justice Scalia said, I think in the case that Justice Alito was referring to, you've got a constitutional provision that addresses certain evils, and it should be extended to reasonably comparable evils. He said that about statutory interpretation. I think the same principle applies here, and I think we quote that in our brief.
Later in the show, Gene Hamilton from America First Policy is stopping by to explain why the president's argument is actually right on the law and right on the policy. We turn now to the issue of Iran. Tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern, the president is expected to address the nation formally from the White House on the state of our military operations against the Iranian regime. Now, based on what I am hearing, here's what I think the president will do. He will describe what the U.S. military has accomplished in the last month and how he sees the next 2 to 3 weeks playing out as we perhaps wind down large-scale operations as we achieve the last of our military objectives. Secretary of State Marco Rubio made some comments yesterday. Let's take a listen to Secretary Rubio explaining why Iran's actions had to be addressed in cut number 13.
Those things, the ones they launched the other day, could reach well into Europe, and actually they had fired it on Diego Garcia. One of them failed, one of them was shot down, but they fired him at Diego Garcia, which is really far away. So they were moving towards eventually having a missile that could reach the continental United States. That's what they were aiming to do. They were aiming to become the next North Korea, except not a North Korea run by, a regime that, is troublesome and hard to understand, but an Iran run by radical Shia clerics with intercontinental missiles that could reach the mainland of the United States eventually. That's what they were going towards. That's what they would have ultimately achieved had President Trump not taken these steps that he's taken.
Now, this morning, the president issued a Truth Social post that the new leadership in Iran has asked for a ceasefire, and the president says he's willing to discuss that if the Strait of Hormuz is fully reopened. He says if it's not, we'll keep pummeling Iran. Now, there's obviously some diplomatic back channels occurring here, and tonight we find out from the president whether there is a light at the end of this tunnel. Here's more Secretary Rubio on all of that in cut number 9.
What President Trump is not going to allow is he's not going to allow fake negotiations to be used as a delay tactic, to buy more time, to buy themselves space. That's what he's not going to allow. The Biden administration spent 4 years trying to resurrect the Obama nuclear deal with Iran. They spent 4 years trying to talk to the Iranians, and they strung them along for 4 years, and I think they thought they could string this administration along for 4 years, but they're not going to string along President Trump. He's not going to fall for their games. He hasn't fallen for their games, so we'll always be prepared to talk, but we're not going to allow that or the failure of talks to impede our ability to defend this country and to protect this country from a real threat. It's a threat to the world. It's not just a threat to America.
More Middle East news. In a stunning development, Democratic Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is saying that she is going to reverse her position and no longer support funding for Israel's Iron Dome system, which shoots down incoming rocket and missile attacks from radical Islamic terrorists. The system has saved countless lives in Israel, and now the spiritual leader of the Democratic Party, I guess, is hoping that as many Israelis as possible will die in future rocket and missile attacks. The Iron Dome is purely a defensive weapon, and yet, the leader of the U.S. Democratic Party says she doesn't want Israel and the Jewish people to be able to defend themselves. That is, of course, the baseline view of the socialist radical, that in the war between the oppressors and the oppressed, it is only fair for the oppressors to be deprived of their right to fight back so that the oppressed may kill them at will. Strikes me that we've never had greater clarity on who people actually are. Remember AOC's decision here the next time she offers up some meaningless platitudes on social media. We have more breaking news to come. Lots of breaking news developing all over the place. We cover it all. It's Scott Jennings on Salem. Common sense for the American people. Stay with us. Hey, it's Scott, and I have a question. Do you feel like nutrition is getting way too complicated? I go to the store and I read the labels and I'm like, why is this so hard? Now, I have been trying to be more mindful of what I eat and how I supplement, and honestly, it makes sense to me to start with nature. When you eat whole foods, what you're getting are phytonutrients. These are natural compounds that your body uses to adjust, repair, and respond every single day. Now, balance of nature takes real fruits, real vegetables, and runs them through a tailored vacuum cold process that stabilizes phytonutrition. The whole health system that we're talking about here bundles fruits and veggies and fiber and spice, and it gives you 47 whole food ingredients and all of their phytonutrients in one simple routine. Their new freeze-dried snacks go through a similar process, and you can snack and feel good about it all at the same time. Whole food phytonutrition plus balance of nature helps you fight the good fight. See what we did there? Save over 30% when you subscribe to this at balanceofnature.com. And if you do that, you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of customers in one simple routine that is, in fact, changing the world.
Leaving the leftists saying hamina, hamina, hamina. Yeah, this is the Scott Jennings Show.
Fun to be in the chair on a news day like this one here, Wednesday, April the 1st. All sorts of things happening today, including President Trump speaking to the nation tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern. He will speak to the country, the world, from the White House. And if you are so inclined, you can track the president's speech live tonight on the Salem News Channel, radio and video products alike. 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific. President Trump speaks to the country tonight about our Operation Epic Fury against Iran. Joining me now for an interview and a discussion about what's going on in America's medical schools. You won't believe it. The admissions process is run amok. Adam Guillette is here. Adam, your organization has been investigating what's going on in these medical schools. Now the Department of Justice is looking into it. Bottom line, as I understand it, they're not looking for the smartest. They're just looking for the most boxes checked in DEI. Do I have it about right?
That is about right. You know, it's one thing when they bring somebody in for a basket weaving degree who isn't necessarily qualified to weave baskets. But to bring people into medical schools where lives are in danger, where people can be saved or not, who aren't qualified for it, is a terrible thing for all of us. Now, the Supreme Court previously ruled that you can't use race as a factor in admissions. Now, just as we learned at Accuracy in Media with our hidden camera investigations into DEI bans, these new racial admission bans, essentially from the Supreme Court, are ignored just as much. For example, they'll now admit people based on the zip code that they're coming from. If you're from this zip code, but your test scores are very low, you might get in over somebody from another zip code with higher test scores simply because they know that your zip code has more people of their preferred racial group. I don't think anybody cares about racial group when getting medical care done. They just want a professional who's skilled to give them the care that they need. But for the radicals who run higher education, for the radicals who run these med schools, the law means very little.
Adam Guillette is our guest from Accuracy in Media. Adam, you'll have to forgive me. I'm just a rhubarb from Western Kentucky, but it seems to me that when it comes to medical schools or other very technical education matters, don't we just want to admit the smartest people with the highest test scores who have the greatest likelihood of learning how to keep us alive? Isn't that the goal here? Why is it that the American left has infected these educational institutions to the point where that simple bit of common sense is now the last thing on their mind? It's kind of outrageous.
Well, remember, these are the people who think equality is a bad word and must be replaced with equity. And, people think that DEI is merely an updated version of affirmative action. It's far more dangerous than that. Essentially, the premise of DEI does away with the golden rule and replaces it with, as you described, a system of oppressors and oppressed. And if you engage in violence against an oppressor group, well, that's okay. It's merely resistance to oppression. Thus, similarly, why would you follow some evil oppressor law that says you can't admit people on the basis of race? They're going to always be far more loyal to their ideology than they are to the actual law. Because generally speaking, unless an accuracy in media investigator catches them, or unless, God bless her, Harmeet Dillon investigates them, there are no consequences, even in red states, for ignoring DEI bans. Whereas if you betrayed their woke ideology, if you showed up to one of these administrative meetings, or if you suddenly proclaimed on a campus as the dean of students that you were a MAGA supporter, well, that would have consequences right away. You'd be ostracized by your colleagues. You'd probably be denied tenure. They would run you out of that campus violently if they had to. So it's incredibly important for the federal government to finally deliver consequences for people who are breaking the law, ignoring the Supreme Court's prohibition on race and admissions.
Adam, you said something there that I think might surprise some of our listeners. Just because you live in a red state, do not assume that the universities and colleges in your state are abiding by any common sense on this. In fact, it's some of the big universities in red states that are some of the worst offenders. So we've got about 30 seconds here, Adam. Advice to people, even in red states, about how to hold universities, particularly taxpayer-funded universities, accountable?
Well, every state needs a Florida-style law, not only banning DEI programs, but with oversight to ensure that they don't just change the job titles. And just as importantly, many of the DEI bans in Kansas and Kentucky don't touch curriculum. We need to prohibit the promotion of identity politics at any point in education. You can discuss controversial topics in the appropriate class, but they should never be promoting radical ideologies.
Adam Guillette, Accuracy in Media. We always appreciate your undercover reports. Thanks for bringing us the information today. I am saddened but sure that you will be back in the near future as you continue to uncover this craziness in American higher education. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we are discussing and tracking the upcoming launch of Artemis II. The spokesperson for NASA, Bethany Stevens, is near the launch pad. She is expected to join us live after this. It's Scott Jennings on Salem with breaking news. Stay with us.
Portions of the Scott Jennings Show are sponsored in part by Americans for Prosperity. Truth, justice, and the American way. Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
It is Wednesday, April the 1st, and tonight NASA is set to make history once again, launching the Artemis II, the first crewed mission to the moon in more than 50 years. 4 astronauts will travel roughly 250,000 miles from Earth, flying around to the far side of the moon on a 10-day mission before returning home. Now, this isn't a landing, but it is a critical test flight of the systems that will eventually take Americans back to the lunar surface and perhaps ultimately to Mars. Joining us live, steps from the launch pad, is the press secretary for NASA, Bethany Stevens. Bethany, we are so glad you've taken a few minutes to join us here on the Scott Jennings Show. Now, I remember a few weeks ago you were on the show. We thought we were going to launch this rocket, and unfortunately, we had to scrub it at the last minute. And I thought to myself that day, I hope Bethany comes back when we actually launch this thing. And here we are, mere hours from launching Artemis. You are on the ground at Kennedy Space Center. The weather is good. The launch is a go. Tell us, what do you see right now? And set the scene in Florida for the American people.
Yes, well, the day has finally come, and first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am actually looking out upon our beautiful vehicle assembly building here at Kennedy Space Center, and I can see our beautiful SLS rocket right there on the launch pad. It's gearing up for launch, and we are just a few hours away at this point. So it's looking like all systems are a go, and we're very excited for this historic day.
All right, Bethany, it is 1:34 Eastern live here as we do this broadcast, so we're just a few hours away. Kind of give us an idea of what's happening behind the scenes. I read a little while ago that the fueling of the rocket is underway. How long does that take? Also, where are the astronauts themselves right now, and what are they doing as we get ready for launch?
You are exactly right, Scott. Fueling is taking place right now, and our astronauts are getting ready. They're suiting up, and they're going to load into that rocket here shortly. Then all systems will hopefully be a go, and we will be well on our way to launching Americans back to the moon for the first time in over half a century. Monumental American victory there, and we will never lose sight of the moon again.
Okay, so for those of us who, and our viewers and listeners who don't follow space exploration that closely, talk to us about this mission. It's a 10-day mission. Give us an idea. What's going to go on inside that rocket over the next 10 days?
Absolutely. So this is a test mission, and I know you mentioned earlier the lunar landing. This is the next step forward in that endeavor. We're going to be landing in 2028. And right now, the astronauts will be loading into the rocket so that they can go on this 10-day journey, test the system, stress the systems, manually pilot the rocket, look at the dark side of the moon for the first time with human eyes, identify where we're going to be landing, figure out different scientific metrics that will be helpful to us as we continue this endeavor. 8.8 million pounds of thrust getting them up there, big sonic boom that we're going to be hearing down at Kennedy Space Center, and then they're going to splash down off the coast of San Diego 10 days later, tell us all about their insights. And of course, we're NASA, so we have to communicate all of this. We're going to be having check-ins with these astronauts throughout the mission, where they're going to be telling us what they're seeing, what they're experiencing, speaking with people here on the ground, and even answering questions from those of you on social media.
So you led into my next question. How much contact are we going to have with the astronauts? It sounds like we're going to be in constant contact. And are you saying that people can actually communicate with the astronauts and they're going to be answering some questions? That's an amazing amount of access for people who are going to be farther away from Earth than any human being has ever been.
Yes, so I know it might surprise everybody, but this actually is rocket science. We will still have communication capabilities, and the astronauts will be partaking in several downlinks. They'll be speaking with news media personalities, and they will also be doing that social media downlink opportunity where people online can ask their questions that they're thinking of, what is burning in their minds as they're watching the launch, as they're watching this historic moment, and as they're following the crew throughout their journey. And the crew will have this downlink to answer all of those and hopefully get through as many as possible and answer most of those questions, offer some insight.
So we're going here farther away from the Earth than we have ever gone with human beings aboard a rocket. Talk to us about some of the technical challenges to make that happen. You say we're going around the moon. We're going to see the dark side of the moon with human eyes for the first time ever. Talk to us about the technical challenges. I mean, this is a new thing. We haven't done this before, but give us an idea of how the engineers at NASA looked at the challenges of this, looked at the new problems, and went about solving them.
This mission is analogous to Apollo 8. So we've done something similar before, not quite exactly the same. So this mission path is going to lead the astronauts in Earth orbit first. Then they're going to slingshot around the moon, commit to translunar ejection. We call it TLI here at NASA. And then they're also going to test the system with manual piloting around the moon. This is all testing so that we can, if we ever need to, identify a landing location that we may not have exact coordinates for. For example, on the moon, we're looking for water ice. Once we identify water ice and we figure out how we can make that into a propellant, that's going to be what ultimately gets us to Mars. So the biggest challenges that they're going to be facing here are anything that could come up in air. And, you know, they've been in training for almost 3 years at this point. They are prepared for pretty much any situation we can think of here on Earth. And they're going to have to exhibit some incredible critical thinking skills that we all know they are capable of in this process to tackle any challenge that may come their way. But let me tell you, we have full faith in this crew down here at NASA. You couldn't have picked 4 better people for the job, and we are just so excited to see them carry out this historic mission.
That voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show is Bethany Stevens. She is the press secretary for NASA. She is on the ground at the Kennedy Space Center. She's just a few steps away from the launch pad where Artemis II is sitting on the launch pad. It is being fueled right now. And Bethany, the weather looks good. The launch window opens tonight at 6:24 Eastern. Talk to us about what we're going to see tonight. I know that's when the window opens, but you have a sort of a 2-hour period of time there where you could launch the rocket. How are those decisions made?
You're exactly right. We have a full 2 hours here where we can go. The decision is actually made tracking back when they're going to splash down. So we ultimately want the crew to splash down off the coast of San Diego. So launch windows, we only have a couple of days each month. They trace back from that point in time to make sure they splash down at that exact point. As far as what we're evaluating today, it's the weather, it's the systems. We currently have people in the firing room. We have people down in mission control in Houston. And we have everyone evaluating the current state of play, the current situation. And only when everyone feels comfortable and everything is signed off and we are 100% confident in our astronauts' safety, will we be a go for launch. So you'll have to stay tuned. We'll have that countdown. I know you've all heard it before. It's a pretty monumental moment when you hear the countdown from 10 all the way to 1, and then you hear that beautiful liftoff. So we're really looking forward to that moment. And right now, it's looking like all systems are going to be a go. So fingers crossed.
And we have a lot of ways that we can watch this tonight. I'm sure many of the cable news stations are going to carry it. I know CNN is planning to carry it. They've got a space special at 5 Eastern this afternoon. But you all are providing unprecedented amounts of access for everybody all over the world to watch this. Give us an idea. And by the way, as we speak, I've got the NASA feed pulled up here on my laptop. I'm paying attention to the NASA broadcast that's going on here and seeing different scenes and different things going on there at the launch site. But for the people out there who want to watch this and really follow along over a longer period of time, what's your best recommendation?
Please tune in. We have continuous coverage. It's going to be on the NASA YouTube channel. We have our own streaming service, NASA Plus. It's contracted with many of the major streaming giants that many of you tune to every single day. We want all eyes on this. Back in the day, during the last space race, we had only 3 channels. All eyes were on NASA. There wasn't much else to watch. Today, we have so many things that can take our eyes, so many different distractions. We definitely want to break through and make everybody aware that we're going back to the moon, and we're not just going back to put footprints on it. We're going back to stay, and this is the first step towards us establishing that lunar base. We're so excited for what these astronauts are going to accomplish. We want to hear your questions. We want to engage with you, and we want everyone to be aware of what's going on. So please tune in.
Okay, so we're doing this mission. If all things stay the same, we're going to launch it tonight. We have 10 days here. We'll get these astronauts back to Earth, and then we start to look ahead, kind of lay out the calendar for us. What is the vision, beginning with Artemis here, over the next few years? What are the next steps, and what is the ultimate goal with NASA's trajectory right now?
Absolutely. So we had an event just a little bit over a week ago where the administrator of NASA, Jared Isaacman, laid out his vision for NASA in alignment with the president's national space policy. At that event, the administrator talked about the cadence Artemis missions. As it stands currently, we're launching every about 3 years. We're losing muscle memory, and we're having to combat the same problems each time. Now, what we're going to be doing forward past Artemis II, which hopefully is just in a matter of hours, we'll be moving to Artemis III in 2027, where we will test our lunar landing systems, as well as hopefully our spacesuit. Then in early 2028, we'll move to Artemis IV, and that will be our lunar landing. That's us going back to the moon. As I mentioned earlier, we're in the middle of a space race. We're facing mounting Chinese aggression. The Chinese National Space Agency is both civil and military. We are going in peace for exploration for all of humankind here at NASA, Artemis 4 early 2028, and then hopefully Artemis 5 at the end of 2028, which makes for 4 crewed lunar missions under President Trump, which is opposed to 1 uncrewed lunar mission under President Biden. So we're really taking a step forward here in this program that President Trump founded to deliver for the American people and return to American greatness in space. We're still the space leader, but we want to make sure that we ensure that for decades to come.
Bethany, final question for you, and thank you for being so generous with your time. You're a political appointee of the Trump administration. You've gone to serve your government. Today, you find yourself standing steps from a rocket in one of the most historic launches that we've had in modern American history. How much pride do you feel right now as an American being able to be on the ground for this and to communicate with the American people about what we're doing to make history tonight?
It's really hard to put into words. I never thought that I would be here. My grandmother worked at NASA. It's been an inspiring time. I'm so proud to be an American. I'm so proud to work for this president, and I'm so excited for his commitment to our space program and to see what's to come over the next several years. I hope everyone's eyes are on this, and I hope that everyone is just as excited to be an American today as I am.
That voice you're hearing, Bethany Stevens. She is the press secretary at NASA. She's giving us the update. Bottom line, the weather looks good. The window opens at 6:24 Eastern this evening. The rocket is being fueled. All systems presently are a go for Artemis II to launch into space for a 10-day mission to go around the moon and come back to Earth. The splashdown would take place off the coast of San Diego. Bethany, thank you for your time tonight. This is one of those nights where you remember where you were, because America is leading the world back into space. Bethany Stevens, we look forward to talking to you in the very near future. I do have a word from our friends and new partners at Chapter. If you or someone that you love is on Medicare, you need to hear about this. Medicare is extremely confusing, is a mess of robocalls and mailers and half-truths. And I am partnering with Chapter because they are cutting through all that noise. I just put my own parents through the Chapter consultation. I got to tell you, the results speak for themselves. My mom, thanks to their help, is going to save $600 a year. And my dad, he just moved. He lives with me now. And he needed a new primary care physician. They went into their database. They helped my dad find a new primary physician where he lives now versus where he did. It was like a concierge service. So if you're already on the best plan, they'll tell you that. If there's a better plan, they'll tell you that, and they'll get you switched over. It's called Chapter. All you got to do on your phone is dial pound 250 and say Medicare plan. It's Chapter. Dial pound 250 and say Medicare plan. We're going to take a break. It's Scott Jennings, Common Sense for the American People. More after this.
The Scott Jennings Show is proudly sponsored by Lear Capital. Since 1997, Lear has helped Americans protect their retirement accounts and savings with physical gold and silver. With thousands of five-star reviews and $3 billion in transactions, Lear is who I trust to help me buy gold and silver. Visit LearScott.com.
You've heard the narratives. Now get the truth. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
I see astronauts in spacesuits on the NASA feed right now. They're in their suits talking to a few folks. Very exciting. We'll be looking forward to the Artemis II launch tonight. And after that, we'll be looking forward to President Trump speaking to the nation at 9 Eastern. If you'd like to watch that live, you can do it across the Salem News Channel. We've got radio stations and video products. 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. President Trump, national address on Iran tonight. Follow along here on Salem News Channel. The president started his day at the Supreme Court, doing something no president's ever done, going to oral arguments. The case today about birthright citizenship and his executive order. Joining me now is Gene Hamilton, the president of America First Legal. Gene, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show. You've been following the arguments today. So my first question is the president right on the law? And since you've been tracking the arguments, how do you think it's going for him in court today?
Yeah, the president is 100% right on the law. The president's executive order restores the original meaning and intent of the 14th Amendment's text, the subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which of course is the text that everyone is so focused in on. The notion that this amendment was supposed to cover anyone other than slaves, former slaves, and it was intended to cover people who come here and give birth to children who are foreign nationals, illegal aliens, anyone of the sort, is ludicrous. So the president's position is correct legally. It is the most loyal to the intent of the 14th Amendment. Now, what played out in the Supreme Court today is a whole other deal. We'll see. We've got at least a few justices that are on the president's side, it appears, from a legal standpoint. There are a couple who are a little bit wary, and then there are a few who I think you know exactly where they are. So this is going to be a very, very close decision.
Gene, based on your knowledge of how the court works, the arguments were had today, when do you anticipate a decision on this case?
I think this is the last day of the term. I think this one is going to be the last week, the last day, right before they head out of town. If I was a betting man, just given the stakes, given the enormity. Look, I've been wrong about things before, so who knows? But I really do think that it is going to be just a matter of time.
Okay, and so you mentioned that we've got justices all over the place. Who do you consider to be the one or two swing votes here that we should be paying attention to?
I think what we're going to be paying attention to Justice Barrett and Justice Gorsuch. The chief seemed to be siding with the liberal members of the court, if you went by his tone and the type of questions that he was asking today. But, look, he's surprised people before, too, right? Finding Obamacare not to be a tax, for example. So you never people like to read the tea leaves. They like to make predictions based on the types of questions that people ask at hearing, at oral argument. But it's not always the case that, in fact, things play out the way that you think they do at the day of argument.
Gene Hamilton is speaking with us today. He's president of America First Legal. Gene, we often talk about this birthright issue as it relates to illegal immigration. And, of course, we've had millions of people come to our country and have children, and that is an issue. It's a huge issue. But something that's come up recently that's gotten a lot of attention are these Chinese billionaires who are engaging in this birthright citizenship tourism, and they're sending pregnant women to U.S. territories, saying of abusing the visa system. Was that brought up in court today?
Yeah, look, there were references to a lot of different things, a lot of the different practices, the practicalities. I believe that there was even Justice Jackson actually, I'm sorry, not Justice Jackson. It was Cecilia Wong was asked about this general topic in whether or not anyone, whomever, whether they're a spy, whether they're just a hostile actor or whatever, if their children born here become citizens. And of course, her answer was yes, that they in fact do. Of course. Just without question. And so, look, it is a practical problem. If the Supreme Court comes out the wrong way here on the constitutionality, I think you have to expect that the Department of Homeland Security will be that much more intrusive about who's coming into the country. Because if anyone can come here and give birth on soil and have a citizen, then it is what it is.
It's a huge vulnerability.
A hostile actor.
Yeah, huge vulnerability. Yeah. Gene Hamilton from America First Legal, thanks for joining us. We got to take a break. More news after this. It's Scott on Salem. Don't go anywhere.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Okay, it's Wednesday, April the 1st. Common sense for the American people. We are tracking all sorts of breaking news today. A quick check of those headlines. We are awaiting the launch of the Artemis II rocket at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida tonight. The launch window opens 6:24 Eastern Time. Weather looks good. The fuel is going into the rocket. I've seen astronauts on the feed here in their suits, and I believe right now they are in vans headed out to the launch pad. So everything looks like a go in Florida. We're excited about the first manned mission to the moon in over 50 years. President Trump dealing with the ballroom issue. As you know, he tore down the east wing of the White House with the intent of building a brand new and large ballroom. Yesterday, a federal judge said, hold on, you can't do that. You've got to get approval from Congress. The president has, of course, a different point of view. They'll be appealing that ruling. President is also addressing the nation tonight, 9 o'clock Eastern. You can watch the speech on Salem News Channel on our video products, wherever you get that. By the way, you can now watch it on Roku if you have Roku at home. And on our radio stations coast to coast, we'll be tracking live tonight the president's address to the nation, 9 Eastern and 6 Pacific. And this just into the show, the president today is calling for a new congressional reconciliation bill. You'll hear it called Reconciliation 2.0 that would fund ICE and Border Patrol, and he wants that on his desk by June the 1st. Now, Speaker Johnson is going to be working closely on this with August Pfluger, a congressman from Texas. Now, you know August, if you were a regular listener. He comes on here all the time. He's the head of the Republican Study Committee. He has been a proponent of a new reconciliation bill all year long. So we're tracking the president's urgency on budget reconciliation 2.0. In other news, we are still tracking terrible stories regarding illegal immigrants committing violent crimes in Northern Virginia, and we are doing it through WJLA, the local ABC affiliate. TV news reporter Nick Minock. Nick is breaking story after story, and it's heartbreak after heartbreak, and he joins us live now here on the Scott Jennings Show. Nick, in the last 24 hours, you have broken 2 stories about illegal immigrants in Northern Virginia being charged with murder. Tell us what you know today about these tragic incidents.
Hey, Scott. So today we learned that the man who is accused of beating his 3-month-old daughter, baby daughter, is in the country illegally. My law enforcement sources have told me that he is from Guatemala, that he entered the southern border at an unknown time and date near Albuquerque. And that news happens to happen right after we reported on a man who is accused of repeatedly stabbing another man with a machete over the weekend, and that man is also from Guatemala. And ICE says he's a got-away, and ICE and DHS have put out a statement calling on Governor Abigail Spanberger to commit not to release that man from the sheriff's office. As we've talked about on your show, Scott, the Fairfax County Sheriff does not honor ICE detainers, and the police department is not allowed to alert ICE when there are people like this in the community. And this is two murders in recent weeks that we're reporting on, but you might recall a third one not long ago. Stephanie Minter was stabbed to death at a bus stop in Fairfax County. And so there's been 5 murders so far this year in Fairfax County, Virginia, most of them committed by illegal immigrants.
Yeah, this is Nick Minock from WJLA TV covering the crime scene in Fairfax County in Northern Virginia, joining us live here on the Scott Jennings Show. This latest story about the illegal immigrant who killed a 3-month-old baby. Based on your interviews and your work on this story today, are people in Fairfax County absolutely outraged by this? Because if they are not, they really ought to be. And then as a follow-on to that, let's talk about the policy, legal, and political issues here. What are the odds that these people are ever going to wind up in federal custody, given the posture of the local and state government in Virginia?
Yeah, so the answer to your first question, I think more and more people are learning about this. In Fairfax County, we don't have a ton of murders throughout the year. We've, like I said, had 5 so far, in a county that has over 1 million people. And with 3 of those murders happening because of illegal immigrants, I think people are a little shocked by it. Now, when it comes to the policies, it's really difficult for ICE to pick up a lot of these folks, because the Fairfax County Sheriff, Stacey Kincaid, does not cooperate with ICE, period. The Board of Supervisors doesn't either. The governor has a bill on her desk. If she signs it into law, it would ban local jurisdictions from cooperating with ICE. So this might be Commonwealth-wide in Virginia if she signs that bill into law, meaning every jurisdiction in Virginia might be like Fairfax, where they do not cooperate with ICE. And we do have a prosecutor, too, in Fairfax County who has let these folks out time and time again, like Stephanie Minter's case. Steve Descano had the opportunity to prosecute this guy and several other stabbings, but almost every charge that came across his desk, he dropped, allowing him to walk free to allegedly then kill Stephanie Minter at a bus stop. So it's difficult, I think, for the federal government to work with these local jurisdictions in Virginia. I know ICE wants to, but what they're having to do, because these people are being released from the jail, they're having to go out into the local community and find them and arrest them there.
Nick, this is perhaps a rudimentary question, but this is a true sanctuary area. Fairfax County is a true sanctuary for illegal immigration. I have two questions, actually. Number one, because of that, is it even possible for you to know how many illegal immigrants there are in Fairfax County right now? And number two, based on your reporting, has Fairfax County become a magnet or a destination for people who have come into this country illegally? You mentioned one person on one of the stories, got here, was in Albuquerque, and all of a sudden is in Fairfax. Is it likely, because of the policies and because of the way it works there, that people from all over the country who are in here illegally are saying, well, Fairfax County, that's the place to be. They don't really do anything about it over there?
Well, Fairfax County, the Board of Supervisors here, so that's like a county council, for instance, or a city council. So they are the governing board for the county. They have gone out of their way not to record immigration status of residents when they apply for benefits, things like that. Even when the police department might arrest someone, they now aren't asking about status and then alerting ICE if they happen to be in the country illegally for any crime in Fairfax County. So it's very difficult for Fairfax County, for us in Fairfax County, to know how many illegal immigrants are in the county. But we do have some things we can look at. For instance, the school system has a significant amount of what they call English language learners. Now, that doesn't mean all those English learners are in the country illegally, but many of them are. And you see about a third, or about 20% in Fairfax County, it's a large school system, are English learners. And some schools, about a third or half of the students are English learners, and they only speak Spanish. And so it's really interesting to kind of track this, because what I've been hearing from teachers for a while now in Fairfax County is that they have students in their classroom who speak Spanish only, but they don't read in Spanish. They don't write in Spanish. And so teachers are having to pause instruction time with English speakers to then focus on those Spanish speakers so they can learn instruction, learn the language. They have to teach them how to read and write in Spanish in their own language first, then learn English, and then the instruction. So you do see a disruption at a significant level, not just with crime, but also the learning experience so many English learners have now in Fairfax County.
Nick, how can people follow your work? I've been tracking you on the X platform. You're on television, WJLA TV in the Washington, D.C. market. But online, if you're interested in following the strains of illegal immigration in Northern Virginia, where do we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, also X, Nick Minock, M-I-N-O-C-K is my last name. And of course, we post our work on WJLA.com. So, Scott, thanks for asking, and thanks for covering this.
Nick Minock, I cannot recommend his reporting enough. You're going to see terrible things, but we need to shine a light on the consequences of illegal immigration, particularly just outside of our nation's capital. We'll take a break. I'm not done with the people from The View, by the way. You're going to want to hear this next interview right after this.
Ready for more common sense? Here's CNN's senior political commentator, New York Times best-selling author, and America's favorite political pundit, Scott Jennings.
9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific tonight. President Donald Trump addresses the nation, and you can watch it live on the Salem News Channel and listen to it on Salem radio stations coast to coast. We have a lot of video products out there, ways for you to watch it. If you're on Roku, by the way, we're now on the Roku channel. So Salem will be carrying the president live tonight, 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific, as he talks to us about what's going to happen in Iran. Yesterday, if you were listening to the show, you heard me go off on these crazy people on The View. They were having an insane meltdown about a speech that was given at the CPAC conference in which someone made a very reasonable proposition that it's a good idea for women to get married and have babies. This set off Sonny Hostin and the other people at The View, and I have the person in question on the show. Her name is Isabel Brown. She is host of the Isabel Brown Show over at the Daily Wire. Isabel, welcome into the Scott Jennings Show. You gave very non-controversial, reasonable remarks at CPAC, and it caused heads to explode on The View. How surprised were you that what you had to say about motherhood set these harpies off in the way that it did?
Truthfully, Scott, in my wildest dreams, I never expected this was going to be what people tried to cancel me over. I've been a content creator and a podcaster since I graduated from college in 2019, and we talk about all sorts of stuff in the culture war that's wildly controversial to weigh in on every day. But I made this one-sentence comment during a larger 30-minute panel at CPAC last week, asked to provide my perspective on how we save America as a young wife and a young mom, and I said, I love being a wife and a mom, and I want other young people to experience that joy too. Have the courage to get married, have kids before you think you're ready, and more than you think you can afford. You would have thought that was the end of civilization, apparently. I had no idea The View was going to be covering this. The way I found out about it was from an Instagram DM from a Fox News digital reporter asking me to comment about it, and it's been a whirlwind of a 24, 48-hour cycle here.
What's crazy is that your point of view is actually the majority opinion. If you look at opinion polls, the happiest people are women who are married with children. That is the happiest cohort in America, and The View obviously does not see it that way. Of course, I think their problem is that they just hate the president so much, and they live in such a misery that they don't want anyone to feel any joy. How could anyone possibly feel any joy while Donald Trump is the president? It's really a broken-brained analysis. Now, what I'm interested in is whether they might ever have you on to debate this, because I have my suspicions that they won't. But have you been in touch with them at all about this?
We have. Obviously, they didn't invite me to come on in the first place, so, you know, we missed the boat on that one. But as soon as we saw the segment was live, we had reached out to the executives at ABC and the bookers for The View, said, I will get on a train immediately. I live in D.C. It's so easy for me to get to New York. We'll come tomorrow for the show. And they took a few hours of radio silence to get back to us, ultimately said, yeah, we talked about Isabel today. You don't say. Of course you did. But we'll keep her on our radar in the future. In the meantime, we're totally booked up for the next couple of weeks. Of course, they're not interested in having an actual conversation about it, which is really disappointing. But it's not surprising, sadly, when they know that they're going to come across as these insane peddlers of misery propaganda, which is the best way to describe The View. The great irony is I would love to ask all of the women in this conversation, hey, you are all, except for one, mothers yourselves. You are all, except for one, married or have been married in the past. Why is it good enough for you, but not good enough for the rest of our society?
Isabel, you made some great comments at CPAC, and you make a lot of great content, and you're host of this Isabel Brown Show at the Daily Wire. Tell us about the show, what you do every day. I think you're one of the brightest lights in our upcoming conservative punditry movement, and I want people to know, how can they watch you every day? Because I think what you're doing is incredible. Tell us how to find the Isabel Brown Show.
Thank you, Scott. I've been a content creator for a very long time and spent a lot of years reacting to the insanity of the left, but joined forces with the Daily Wire last year to relaunch my show, wanting to go more on offense, to give young people a pathway and a blueprint for how we rebuild the American dream and create culture to pursue what is good and true and beautiful. So we cover everything from the White House to homeschooling moms in Idaho, what food we're eating, dating, marriage, faith, and the revival that we're seeing. I met you at the White House, in fact, at a podcast roast show a couple of weeks ago, which is so fun, in person for the first time. So we are live every single day with our show across my social media channels and, of course, on Daily Wire Plus, but really trying to break free of this cycle in politics where it's always on the defense, apologizing for our values as conservatives, and now starting to go on offense to give people something to have hope in.
Her name is Isabel Brown. Find her at the Daily Wire and on social media. You won't regret it. Isabel, let us know, by the way, if The View wises up and gets back to you. We got to take a break. When we come back, Congressman Mike Collins of Georgia is here. He's at a big Senate race down there. We'll ask him all about it right here on The Scott Jennings Show.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
T-minus 3 hours, 51 minutes until the Artemis II launches tonight at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida. I'm looking at a live feed inside Artemis. It looks like the astronauts are on board and they're flipping switches and figuring out where they're sitting and so on and so forth. I think it's still a go down in Florida, so we're paying attention to this historic rocket launch this evening. Coming up in about 60 seconds, Mike Collins in Georgia, the leading candidate for the Republican nomination for Senate, is with us. I do first want to talk quickly about the fact that April is Child Abuse Awareness Month, and here is something that every parent and grandparent and caretaker needs to hear. More kids are being targeted online through social media, gaming platforms, and messaging apps. Big tech is not doing enough to protect them. These companies profit from screen time and engagement, and unfortunately, predators do slip through the cracks. Our friends and partners at Child Help are hearing from children every day who were contacted by adults who were pretending to be someone else through these games and apps. The kids are groomed, they're manipulated, they're threatened. One boy called the Child Help National Child Abuse Hotline. He was terrified and he was ashamed. This adult who had been posing as a child started demanding photos and threatening to call and lie to his parents if he didn't comply. You can imagine what a small child would feel like if that started happening. Terrifying. Child Help saved that boy's life, I have no doubt. And that's why they matter. And that's why you can help today. I am asking you to give $27 today. That's all it takes to fund one of these calls to the National Child Abuse Hotline. It is a life-saving program. If big tech is not protecting our kids, we have to do it. Here's what you do. Go to childhelp.org/Scott or text Child Help to this number, 94878. Just put 94878 in the text and then put the word Child Help in the body of that text, and you can give $27 today. I donate. I know these people. I've been to their headquarters. I trust them. They will put your money to this sole purpose, saving the life of a child. And by the way, coming up, programming note on the show tomorrow, I have an exclusive interview with Michael Maduro of Child Help. He is the COO of Child Help, and we're having a conversation about the beginning of National Child Abuse Awareness Month and what Child Help is doing to protect children all across the country. It is Wednesday, April the 1st. This is Common Sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here and tracking some political news. One of the biggest Senate races in the country is taking place in Georgia. The incumbent there is a Democrat named John Ossoff, and he's going to be heavily targeted by the National Republican Party. The GOP primary is going on to decide who's going to face Ossoff, and the leading candidate is currently Congressman Mike Collins, who represents in the House Georgia's 10th Congressional District, and he is here with us today. I do want to play a quick cut of Mike Collins as he launched his campaign. Here's cut number 17.
Be able to go over there and to the Senate side where we have a problem where you don't have 60 senators. We send a lot of good legislation over there, but it gets held up because you don't have enough in the Senate to close debate. And John Ossoff is one of the reasons that we cannot do that. I look forward to getting over there, being a part of that, to continue our America First agenda and make sure that we continue to go down the road of changing this country, getting it back on track.
Mike Collins, Congressman from Georgia. Welcome into the Scott Jennings Show. We're glad to have you.
Hey, Scott, appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, glad to hear your voice today. And I want to start by getting your reaction to some of the news of the day. I want to start with this Supreme Court case about birthright citizenship. The oral arguments have been going on today. The president actually went to listen to some of the arguments. Tell us your view. Is the president right? Should we be curtailing birthright citizenship as he called for in his executive order?
Yeah, no, he's exactly right. You know, birthright citizenship was not set up for that. It was used during the slavery years and to make sure that they had birth citizenship rights. And now it has just been totally abused and taken over for illegals that are coming into our country and then having kids just to get on our social welfare programs. And that needs to stop. And I am glad that President Trump has taken up the mantle and to get this corrected.
Tonight, the president, Congressman Collins, at 9 o'clock Eastern, is going to address the nation and give us an update on Operation Epic Fury and what we're doing in Iran. Tell us, what are you expecting to hear tonight? What do you want to hear from the commander-in-chief this evening?
Well, I think he's going to be very clear on what we're over there for. But I never like to put any words in President Trump on what he may or may not say. I would not trust anybody any more than President Trump. I trust his leadership. I trust his vision and his judgment and his decision making. And you know, at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that that we keep the American people safe over here in this country. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that we went into Iran, and we're making sure that they can't attack and kill us anymore. This has been going on 47 years, Scott. And the fact that they were that close to nuclear weapons, and Lord help, they keep saying they didn't have missiles that could, cruise missiles that could reach anywhere, and had one that went 2,500 miles. So I guess they were lying about that too. But it's time to put this to bed so that the next generation and my kids and my grandkids don't wake up one day to a nuclear Iran. And you don't think they don't have control over that strait over there right now? You wait, if they were ever to get a hold of nuclear weapons, just what would happen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think taking out their nuclear capacity has got to be at the top of the president's list to talk to the country about tonight. But there's no doubt, by the way, that we have defanged this regime. We're blowing up their missiles. We've sunk their Navy. They have no Air Force. We're flying B-52 bombers and refueling them over Iranian airspace. We effectively control the skies there right now. So it's been nothing short of a brilliant military victory, although it's crazy to me, and I assume you're getting this from some Democrats that you run into out there, just how much wish casting is going on the American left. It's almost like they're hoping for bad outcomes for the American military. It's kind of disgusting, actually, all this rooting against America that's going on the left and in our media, isn't it?
Well, it is, but you take a look at what the Biden administration, what the Democrats did to the military, you know, whether they were defunding it or whether they were going down this woke DEI road with our military personnel and getting away from the true mission. And thank the good Lord, during the first Trump administration, he put a lot of money into our military. And in the second administration, we have too in that big, beautiful bill that we make sure that they get paid what they need to get paid. They still need more. But the fact of the matter is, Scott, we've got the biggest, the baddest military in the world, and we are showing it right now. This is peace through strength. Nobody wants to mess with the United States of America, and if you do, we're showing you what can happen.
Talking to Mike Collins, congressman from Georgia, and leading in the polls right now for a Republican nomination to run against Ossoff in the big U.S. Senate seat down there. Congressman, tonight we are a go at the moment for launching the Artemis II rocket. NASA's got a big launch. They're going to go around the moon and come back in 10 days. How excited should we be for this rocket launch? How big of a deal is this for mankind?
Oh, this is incredible. You know, as somebody that sits on the Space Science and Technology Committee, which I think is going to be one of the most sought-after committees here in the next couple of decades, it is incredible to see what we're doing and the capabilities that the United States with NASA, what we have out there at our hands. Things are moving so fast. Technology is moving rapidly. I tell people all the time, I thought the 80s was the best decade ever, but I think growing up and right now with the things that are coming out, technology and the advancements, it's incredible times.
Yeah, I was talking to the spokesperson from NASA on the show earlier, and, they're talking about landing on the moon in 2028 before President Trump leaves office. That would be an incredible development, but it's certainly exciting for our country. Congressman Collins, you're running for the Senate. You are in a Republican primary, so I want to give you a chance to tell us what makes you the best Republican candidate who is best able to defeat John Ossoff this November.
Because when you line us up, I'm a one-term congressman, he's a one-term U.S. senator, and you compare our resumes, this guy, John Ossoff, who went in 2020, and we all know what happened during that election cycle, but this guy has not represented anything for the state of Georgia, not our values, not the people's values. He votes with those crazy people out of California and those nut jobs out of New York versus me. And I have delivered 2 pieces of legislation that have gotten signed into law, bipartisan legislation. And the thing is, everybody knows how conservative I am and the America First agenda person that I am. But I am able to deliver wins for the state of Georgia. And at the end of the day, that's what the people of Georgia want. They want somebody to go to the U.S. Senate and to get things done. Not this mess like what's going on right now with having DHS shut down and our TSA agents not being funded. All because John Ossoff wants to take up and protect illegal aliens, just like the one that killed Lake and Riley. That's the difference in the two of us. We've been tied in the polls with Ossoff since we got in this race. And, Scott, we've been double-digit lead since October in the primary. And good Lord willing, we're going to finish this primary up in May and not take it into a runoff in June. That way we can get on to the real mission, and that's getting rid of John Ossoff.
Congressman, last question for you. You've been in politics a short time, but you have a long-term background in the trucking business. And I'm interested in how you think your private sector trucking background can help translate to effective leadership in the Senate. Are voters responding to your real world, real economy background? Is that what people are looking for out on the campaign trail right now?
I think my real world of 30-plus years in one of the most regulated and taxed industries that there is in this country are the reasons that I've been successful. When you go to D.C. and you run things like a business, you look at what the problem is and what the solution is, and you act on that, then that's what people want. And they understand that I've been successful for 30-plus years. I wasn't looking for this. This wasn't in my bucket list. But by gosh, it's something that I have to do. And people ask me, I don't need a job, Scott. I mean, I still got my trucking company. But I guarantee you one thing, I know how to go up there and serve, and I know how to get the job done that needs to be done for the American people and for the people here in the state of Georgia. And we're going to do that. And we're going to get this place back. President Trump is already doing a fantastic job. And we're moving so many pieces of the puzzle and putting them back on the board at one time right now. If you're a small businessman and you're in Washington, you serve in Congress, this is the best time in the history of this country. I'm telling to be a member up there, because we've got the opportunity to make so many changes, and we're doing that. And it is an exciting time. I've got 3 pieces of legislation right now that is moving either through the House. One of them's already in the Senate. And we've got a good possibility of getting those out. And they're going bipartisan.
Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia, thanks for joining us. You're running for the United States Senate. The primary is coming up in May. We look forward to talking to you in the weeks ahead. I've got a message from our friends, by the way, before we take a break, from the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. You've heard us talk about the fellowship before because they are delivering life-saving emergency essentials as the people in the Holy Land are facing all sorts of missile attacks. Now, I've been over there when missile attacks are happening. When those sirens go off, you've got about 15 seconds to get into a bomb shelter. But imagine if you're elderly or if you're sick or if you're disabled or if you've got small children. This is a very, very difficult thing. The fellowship puts essential emergency supplies in these bomb shelters and also in the emergency rooms, and they take care of Israel's most vulnerable during this very difficult time. I'm asking you to join with Christians and Jews around the world in praying for the protection of Israel. Stand with Israel today. Go with me. Visit supportifcj.org. Supportifcj.org and pray for the people in the Holy Land. Take one last break and home stretch here on the Scott Jennings Show. More right after this.
not in the Oval Office or owning the libs on CNN. He's here with us. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
And it's Wednesday, April 1st, home stretch of the Scott Jennings Show. Final segment today. You know, you've been hearing me talk about our new friends and sponsors here at the show, Lear Capital. And I thought, you know, I'm going to bring on the CEO of Lear Capital to talk about why it's important to think about investing in precious metals right now. Lear Capital is one of the largest and longest standing precious metals companies in the United States. Over $3 billion in transactions and over 100,000 customers served over the last 30 years. And the man who runs it is the CEO, John Ohanesian, is here. John, thanks for joining us on the show today. And I want to start here. We've got a lot of geopolitical tensions out there. We've got Operation Epic Fury going on. A lot of things roiling the world and the financial markets. Why is it important right now for people to be thinking about precious metals as they think about their overall investment portfolio?
Without question, precious metals play an important place in one's portfolio. Historically, financial institutions have recommended maybe 5%. Nowadays, in the last year or two, upwards of 20% they're recommending that you should have in your portfolio of gold and silver. Take a look at silver last year, 120% it increased. Gold, 65%. Yes, this year, when the year started, it moved up dramatically in January, came off a little bit, and then, of course, when the war started on February 28th, it fell significantly. Nonetheless, with the debt levels that we have in this country, elsewhere around the world, over $1 trillion a year that we spend on servicing our $39 trillion of debt, when you have calamities like we have around the world, the Iran war currently, inflation is upon us, more than likely. Initially, when that happens, you see the Fed thinking, well, we're not going to cut rates. We're going to hold or maybe increase. Even the thought of increasing rates causes initially fixed returns on CDs, et cetera, to go up, and then the prices pull back on precious metals. But nonetheless, once inflation comes, if it does, when you consider the debt that we have as a country and other Western countries around the world, the debt that they have, gold and silver play a very important role. And one last thing on this opening comment. Today, of the silver around the world that is mined, 65% of it is for industrial purposes. In 2010, 15, 16 years ago, it was 15%. So it plays a much more critical role in the industrial part of our economy globally.
John, you mentioned that we've seen some fluctuations in gold and silver prices, but these are short-term issues in your opinion. And I guess my question as an average investor, I need to be thinking about this long-term and the long-term value of precious metals. Is that how you advise the average person to think of it? Like, don't worry so much about tracking this every 24 hours. You're thinking about long-term value and the historic value that precious metals have provided to investors.
Absolutely. We strongly encourage our customers to hold their purchase on precious metals, gold or silver, 3, 5 to 7 years, long term. You've got to be a long-term player and not getting in and out. It won't work for you. But long term, with what's going on in the world, we've seen, again, I'm going back to the debt levels that we see continue to accumulate and the servicing of that debt. Look, at the dollar, October of 2024 was on par with the euro. February of this year, just before, days before the Iran matter started, it was down 18% in less than 18 months. So that's significant. Yes, the dollar has come back up a little bit now, but you're going to see it when this gets settled out. The dollar is going to weaken. Gold and silver are going to move back up. We believe that by the end of this year, gold's going to be in the low 6,000, 61, 63, 100, and that silver is going to be at least back to 100, maybe 150. So it's a long-term play, and you can't be getting in and out all the time.
So we're talking to John Ohanesian, President and CEO of Lear Capital, L-E-A-R Capital. And by the way, if you want to do business with Lear, go to Lear, L-E-A-R, Scott.com, LearScott.com. And when you do, you're going to talk to a very experienced and qualified person to talk to you about diversifying your portfolio and investing in precious metals. John, I'm going to give you the last word, 10 seconds. Give me the pitch. Why should someone pick up the phone or go on the internet and talk to Lear Capital today?
3 points. 30 years of being in the business, over $3 billion in transactions, very transparent. Go to our website. You will find our transaction agreement there. And we have a 24-hour, no questions asked, full money back cancellation policy.
Take it from the horse's mouth. That's John Ohanesian, president and CEO of Lear Capital. As I invest in precious metals, there's only one company that I trust. That man runs it. It's called Lear Capital. Go to learscott.com, L-E-A-R Scott.com, and sign up today. We're signing off from New York City. We'll be back tomorrow from Louisville, Kentucky. Thanks for listening on Salem.